Now I'm going to share with you some different activities that I do to use color words in the classroom with signs. The first thing you need to do is to teach them the signs. So what I've done is I've taken out the index cards that I use when I've already taught them the words for the colors. And then I would go through each one. So black, you just put a finger across your forehead, and then I would have the children repeat after me. Black. Then blue. Blue begins with a B. So you make the letter B, and then you wave it like this. Brown. Brown also begins with B, except you rub it against your cheek. Brown. Green. You can say, does anyone know what letter green starts with? G. Most likely they'd all say. You make your sign for G, and you wave it. Green. Orange. It's like you're squeezing an orange near your mouth. Orange. Purple. Purple starts with P, so you make the letter P, and then you wave it. Purple. Red. Red. You use your index finger near your mouth. And yellow. Yellow starts with Y, so you make the sign for Y, and then you wave it back and forth. Yellow. Then what you can do is you can call out a color, for example, green, and have the children show you the sign back to you. Green. Or you can show them the sign and have a child come up and identify the sign for blue and identify the letter that it starts with. I'm going to continue using these during phonics activities and word-making activities and things like that to incorporate the signing. The other thing that you can do is to find some color books that you like, or books that are all about colors. And each time that you hear the color word in the story, for example, yellow, you'd have the children sign yellow after you to incorporate them into the story, to engage those learners who may have gotten off task, and to just keep everybody involved throughout the whole story. Another thing that you might use colors for is some management things. When you're lining the children up, you might say, everybody that's wearing purple can line up. Or you might say, if you have on black shoes, you may line up. These cards have a color word and the corresponding letters underneath them in the ASL letters. This can help the children practice spelling the words and also to recognize the color words. They have a little dot next to each color, so you can color them in with a marker or a colored pencil, because this will help children that are in the younger grades in case they need a clue to help them figure out what the color is. The second version is simply just the color words with the spelling of the words underneath it using the ASL signs. So this could be used once the younger children know their colors and they don't need the clues with the actual color dot next to it, or for older children. I would recommend laminating both sets of these cards if you're going to use them with the students. Or you could even back them up on cardboard before laminating them so that they stay durable. You could use these cards in isolation, either with an individual student or with a partner. They could use them as flashcards and just read the words. They could practice finger spelling them, and they could also use them to demonstrate the sign for each color. To play Go Fish, I would recommend using 4 sets of these color cards. That way there's enough to make 2 sets of each color. Each child would receive 5 cards, and then the remainder of the pile would go in the middle to be the Go Fish pile. You could use this a couple of different ways. One would be just picking up, for example, pink, and asking their partner if they have a pink card. They could use the color dot to help them. They could use the P as the initial sound to help them figure out which one is the color pink, and they could also use the finger spelling. Another version of the game Go Fish that you might play with older children is to have them fingerspell the words to their partner. For example, if they choose the card red, they might say to their partner, R-E-D. And then have their partner look through their cards and see if they can find the one that spells R-E-D for red. A third version might be to have the children pick a sign, for example, orange, and then demonstrate the color sign to their partner without saying the word and or saying the word orange and doing the sign for orange to their partner. And then their partner would have to check their pile to see if they had the orange card. If you wanted to play memory with the color cards, you would need 2 sets. That way each color would have a pair to match. You could vary the number of cards that you have out on the floor depending on the age and the skill of your children. You can do it a couple of different ways. You can have the children turn over cards until they find a match. And if they didn't find a match, they would turn them back over. And then the next person would take a turn. They could practice saying the words as they turn them over. So that was green and brown. And then for the next person that would go, okay, so now we know where green is. So then the last person to take their turn could turn over the 2 green cards. They could read green and take them out and put them into their own pile. And once they have them in their own pile, they could sign for green and they could also fingerspell for the color green and then keep it in their pile. I made a set of these alphabet cards for each letter of the alphabet that has the sign and it has a capital letter and a lowercase letter to go with it. I made them in 4 different colors, so I have 4 sets. That way you can have different groups doing the same thing, but your cards won't get mixed up at the end of the day. One of the things that you can do, either with a small group or with partners, is have the children turn the deck of cards over. Then one at a time, they would turn the top card over and they would make the sign for the letter. So they would say T, T, and they could also make the sound for T, T. If you were teaching them signs that correspond with the letter, they could also sign for turtle, for example. Then the next person would take their turn. They would make the sign for F, then they would say F and make the sound as well. F. Or they could say F, fish, f, and repeat the sign again. That way they can practice identifying their letters, identifying their sounds, practice the finger spelling of the letter, and if you included a sign for fish, say for example, then they could get practice for the object that goes with the sound too. These cards can be used to practice alphabetical order. If the S is on top, the children could look at an alphabet chart to help them know that S belongs towards the end of the alphabet, and they could put it over here. Then they would look at their next card, A. Looking at the alphabet chart, or just from memory, they know that A belongs at the beginning of the alphabet. B comes after A. And they could just line the cards up according to how they go in the alphabet until they have all 26 of them in order. I made up the alphabet using sentence strips for different activities, but something that you can use to practice identifying letters, sounds, and the corresponding signs that go with them is the following. You could use the deck of cards, and one at a time, they could turn over the card. So for example, they would be looking for the letter A. A. Then what they would need to do is they would need to look at the alphabet chart and find and recognize the letter A and point to it. They could also be looking for the sound, ah. They could sign at the same time, and then they might be looking for the letter that makes the ah sound. And again, that would be the A. Then that same person could turn over that card and get their next card, or it could be another person or a partner, and now they would be looking for I, This could also be done if you have an alphabet chart on your wall and maybe they would use a pointer. A different way to use these alphabet strips would be to use the following. They would take one of the letter cards, turn it over, and again, they'd be looking for the letter I. Then they could find the letter I and put it underneath it. At the same time, they can say the letter or say the sound, depending on what your goal is for the lesson. So it might be D, D, or maybe they have to make the sign too. And this is helping them to identify the letter, the sound, and the corresponding sign. F, F. This is something that can be played by themselves, something that can be played in a group or with a partner. To play Go Fish with the signing cards, you would need to make 2 copies of the set. Then you would mix them together and deal out 5 cards to each person and leave the extras in the center for the Go Fish pile. Then one person at a time would look through all of their cards to see if they had any matches, as if you would in Go Fish, and take out the matches. Then they would look at their remaining cards and they would choose one card that they would like to ask their partner for. Let's say, for example, that the first partner wanted to see if their other partner had the B card. So they would say to their partner, B, with the sign. And their partner would look through their pile of cards to see if they did have a B card to give back to them in return. If they did, then this person would be able to take out their matches for B's. If they did not, their partner would say Go Fish, and they would have to pick a card from the center pile to see if they would find a match. This helps the children identify their letters and their sounds, because another version that you could do would be to ask for the sounds. For example, do you have a card that makes the B sign? And they would have to look through all of their cards to see if they did have the B that makes the B. These are cards that I made using pictures from magazines or books. What you can do is you can choose the different letters of the alphabet that you want to practice and make cards for each one. Then the children can look at them all at the same time or one at a time. For example, if they look at the one for flip-flop, they would have to say that flip-flop begins with the sound of F. They can make the sign for F at the same time. Or they can look at sunglasses and say that sunglasses begins with the sound of S, which would be the sound for S. One way that you could use cards like this, or store-bought cards that you might have, is the children could look at each card, determine what sound the picture makes. For example, this could be bunny or rabbit. And then you could have your alphabet cards laid out on the floor, and the children have to go through all of the letters of the alphabet that are in order and try to identify the letter that makes that sound. So if the card was going to be for bunny, they would point to the B for bunny. Or if you wanted that card to be rabbit, then they would need to look for the R for rabbit. This could be done individually or as a pair or in a group, and they just turn over one at a time. So this would be for dinosaur. So they would need to know that they need to look for the D for dinosaur. They would come over to the letter cards, point to the D, and then they could even make the sign for D.